What was your preparation process for this series?
Definitely watching a lot of movies and researching, trauma victims and, learning different coping mechanisms that people use, even though it could be toxic or, unnatural. I feel like that was like my biggest preparation, was just watching other people and real people.
Yeah, I would agree, watching films and, speaking to people to, tell the most authentic story. Watching Castaway for sure, like seeing what Tom Hanks did out there and seeing maybe a taste of what we might have to get into. Yeah, definitely.
And Tony and Martha really have this beautiful relationship. How are you guys able to build that dynamic with each other on the show?
Well, Jenna and I have known each other now for 2 years. We met, obviously, on the pilot in 2018. And, from that moment, knew, first of all, that we had a friendship to build together, but that was not a difficult task at all. It was just naturally spending a lot of time together and getting along as well as we do. It was really exciting to bring that friendship off screen and put it on screen.
Yeah, because we have a lot of talks, like, comparing like our real Indigenous heritage to like our characters and the way like, our dynamics work. So I feel like to bring that chemistry like on screen, it was super easy, like, and I was so comfortable almost all the time.
And with that Indigenous heritage, what was it like being able to have that represented in this show?
It's extremely important to me and something that I'm very passionate about, and something that's really been driving me through this industry to keep going. Because in my head I've always thought something has to have happened by now, and of course something did. Like I finally got this role, and for once I felt something so deserving of for myself, because I really felt it's like, this is like what my community needs. This is what I need for myself. And I'm really blessed for this, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I would say for me as well, I'm Indigenous New Zealand, I'm Maori, and being able to speak with Jenna and, draw some comparisons between our, Indigenous culture and our spirituality was so rewarding, especially because we're telling authentic stories, and so to even just make those connections with one another was so special.
What was something you were both able to learn, not just from your characters, but just being on this show in general?
I think just being on this show and maybe some resilience, and you can take a little bit more than you think, and there's emotional and physical challenges, and you can do it. Even if you think you can't, you really can.
For me, it was like, finding my range of, where I can get these like hard emotions to come out, for sure. I felt like, after half a year of just straight filming, I felt, so strong that, I'm able to pull out, these stressful and emotional scenes, like almost instantly, but like, not, but you know what I mean? Like, it felt easier for me to be more emotionally available to play, like, such a struggle.
And with the show, we're able to see the past and the present of your characters. What was it like building that timeline for these characters?
There are definitely challenges there, because the takes place over 3 timelines, which is awesome, and tracking how your character grows and being aware of that growth, and seeing it go from here to here, but then also at the same time as the series grows, tracking it that way as well. Massively challenging, but so rewarding to be able to see a definitive, like, clear where you began and the journey that you're going to go on, where you end up.
And my final question for you guys is, what do you guys hope viewers can gain from watching The Wilds?
Open up discussions, about your struggles, and maybe you can relate to something, that you see in this show. And I really hope that, people can feel like they're not alone. Like, there is a lot of subjects in here that aren't really talked about. And because this show is talking about it, I'm really hoping, people can see insights that you're not alone.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, I hope that anybody who watches this, that they can see themselves in any of the girls, whether that be, the diversity of us all and how we all look, or whether that just be in the storyline and, in our backgrounds. And I hope everybody can resonate with somebody in some way.
Great. Catherine Tinsley with Nocturnal. How are you guys doing today?
Really well.
Very
thank
well.
you.
How are you?
I'm good. So my first question for you guys is actually for the both of you. What was your preparation process for your characters?
Me personally, I think being Australian and playing an American, became very easy for me to use the accent to get into the character. So working on her accent, how she talks, the way she smiles, how she carries herself, where she's from, doing a lot of research into the whole pageant world, and watching shows like Friday Night Lights to get a good idea of the accent. And then once the accent was kind of in place, just like, walking around in her costume, listening to sort of music that she would listen to, and kind of going through sort of headspaces that she might be going through in my own.
And for me, I think it was reading a lot of books. Our creator recommended some, and I think Leah is quite the bookworm, and I found that by reading these books, it sort of highlighted different internal aspects of a life that is very rich for her, and gave me a sense of her rhythm and the way that she thinks, how she thinks through things, and then just putting on the costume every day. I feel like really sort of helped me understand how she walks through life and how she carries herself.
And the show feels like a modern feminist take on Lord of the Flies. Did either of you read the book for preparing for your roles?
I actually read it in a high school English class. And yeah, I think it highlights a lot of, the book in particular, highlights a lot of grotesque aspects of masculinity, in terms of like the alpha rank and violence that can happen. I mean, really among any group. I think what's different about our show is how women in a matriarchal societies, how that structure is different, and much more egalitarian. And I think, it shows their independent spirit in a way that feels more like a collective than like a hierarchy as it did in the book.
What was your process in developing the character of Shelby and within her timeline that we get to see on the show?
So Shelby goes through a lot of different things as the season progresses, and I kind of went in from the beginning knowing that Shelby had a lot of secrets and a lot of things, a lot of hidden grit. And in terms of preparing for that, I guess it depended on the scenes and the content that I was doing that day. Sometimes it was, music, sometimes it was, how I was presenting myself. A lot of the time I would try and get myself into a physical state of where her mind was. Like I'd try and feel that sort of anxiety that she was feeling, or that fear, and try and like bring it out in myself. And just, understanding her and getting to know her and putting a lot of time and effort into figuring out her intentions and what she wants. And just once I had a really good understanding of who she was, the rest of it kind of fell into place.
And my final question is for both of you. What do you guys hope audiences can gain from watching The Wilds?
I think a perspective in, whether they're a teenage girl themselves or a teenage person, or if they're older and have been through this time in their life. So I think remembering how impactful these moments were and how fresh a lot of these feelings were, and recognizing how much they've shaped them and that they're important and that they linger. And, to honor that, or to work through it, or just take time to think about it. I hope they remember. Yeah, I hope they feel that the special and hard time that time in life is.
Yeah, I think hopefully after this, people dismiss teenage girls or teenage people a lot less. I think it's very easy for people to dismiss the teenage experience because it's like, oh, you're just a kid, you're growing up, and etc. And I hope that after watching this and people relating to it and resonating with it can see how important and shaping these moments are in a person's life, and how much weight they have.
Hi, I'm Catherine Tinsley with The Nocturnal. My first question for you guys is actually for the both of you. How are you able to create that sibling dynamic between your two characters?
We just knocked each other around. I'm just kidding. No, we just had this click that happened, and I think because we both really cared about it, we went into it with like just this understanding of really committing to it. And we would talk about like in passing or while we were doing scenes, like how beautiful this one moment is or what it really means. And we really just had fun and really like fell in love with this love story of sisters and just lived in that.
Yeah, and my next question is that with the structure of the show, we get to see the lives of Rachel and Nora before we kind of meet them in the context of the show. How are you able to build that timeline for your characters? And what was it like building that dynamic of seeing them between childhood and young adulthood?
That's very interesting because the childhood part kind of came out of left field.
We sat down with Sarah Stryker and we had a conversation with her just about like what these childhood moments meant. And it was particularly in my episode that you see those childhood moments. And it was a moment for Nora, but it was also seeing into Rachel's perspective of everyone around her. You see how she sees Nora and how she feels in her family dynamic. Um, and so I think we just, yeah.
We had to trust Sarah and really build.
And my next question is for Rain. What was it like building that dynamic for Rachel and her own mindset as being an athlete, but also someone that's just very determined?
I think those go hand in hand. In all of my research for athletes that are headed towards the Olympics, it's very much so where coaches are closer than parents. The girl that was actually my double for my dive, I spoke with her. She's from Venezuela. Her name is Maria. I can't remember her last name, but I thought that while watching all these diving videos and things like that, I thought that there was like a certain technique as to why divers are on a certain part of the platform when really she said, no, I just go from wherever I can see my coach. So there's this like strong relationship between coach and athlete that then bleeds into I have to be the best, especially in a sport like diving. Diving, there is no, oh, let me dunk here in the basket and pass it to my team member. It's only you. So in diving, it's literally a sport that's based off of perfection. And you see how that bleeds into Rachel's actual life. And so even in life, when, things take a turn or whatever, she doesn't know how to not perceive something as she has to be perfect at it. And she doesn't know how, even though she's imperfect, she's actually perfect, like, perfectly imperfect. And she doesn't know how to see that as a good thing. And Nora is there to help her see that. But that's why her and Nora go at like this, because she can't understand Nora's logic and she can't understand how to be human. She doesn't know how. She's never been. Like once diving started, she became a machine and she didn't know how to tap out of that. And you see that even in how she handles all of the struggles in diving that she faces.
So my first question is actually for both of you. What was your preparation process for these roles?
A lot of accent work. So many Matthew McConaughey films, just too many to count. Yeah, I wanted to go to Texas before shooting and then unfortunately I just ran out of time. But yeah, just like a lot of accent work, really. A lot of journaling. That's about it.
I really wanted to take advantage of this experience sort of as a whole and like learn from it for myself, because it was my first time playing a series regular. And not only a series regular, being so far away from home, so isolated as a person, and then in those opportunities you sort of get to reinvent yourself and figure out what you want and what you need. And I sort of realized along the way that I hadn't really asked myself that for majority of my life, and so then I really just like put myself in that position of like, okay, what do I want from this? And then I translated that to moment, like in my scene work, and being like, okay, what do I want from this scene? And like getting to explore that. I feel like in order to prepare for something like that, I had to like really search myself and make sure like I'm all good. before stepping into something so seemingly like intimidating.
And my next question is for Shannon. How were you able to develop that sort of accent and dialect with your character?
We had a brilliant accent coach on set, luckily. Shout out to Jackie. It was just, yeah, like I said, a lot of Matthew McConaughey films, and then a lot of me interacting with people in public who I've never met at coffee shops and on the street, talking to them in a Texan accent and hoping that I will never see them again. So they'll never know that I'm Australian. Yeah, and then eventually it became an ease, and Dot speaks in a lower register than myself, so once I get into it and I can drop my voice, she comes out pretty easily, and I feel like her voice is the major majority of who her character is. Yeah.
And for both of you, what do you hope viewers can learn from watching The Wilds?
I think that being trapped on an island would make you learn a lot about yourself. And I think that like what I'm hoping happens with viewers is that they put themselves in that scenario and really like assess what would that look like for me.
And what were you guys able to learn through your characters and portraying these characters for yourselves?
How to let go. I really learned through Dot. She gave me an amazing opportunity to just like let go and like be silly and love parts about myself that are a little bit dorky and a little bit embarrassing, and just kind of really let myself go and what others' perception of me is, because Dot doesn't care. She does not care what other people think about her. So it was nice to be able to take some of that into my own life, I feel now. Yeah, she's pretty cool.
I think for me, the biggest thing I learned from Fatten is that there's a lot of power in being unashamed of who you are. And with that power comes like stability. And then that just sort of like translates to the people around you. You know, it's nothing but inspiring. And there's like a lot of things that people find shameful in our world. And if you're just doing you and doing the things that you feel make you beautiful and you're unashamed of that, then yeah, you find a lot of power in that.
Well, thank you guys so much, and congratulations on the show.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you
so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Great meeting you guys virtually.
Yeah, you too.
Bye. This question is for Sarah. When creating this show, what was the initial inspiration for this project?
Yeah, so as stories often start, it began with a breakup. I actually got my heart sort of trampled by someone that I cared about. Anyway, that feeling, that experience made me feel like a teenager again, entirely. The intensity of the feelings, the capacity to sort of wallow and be consumed by the heartbreak. And it brought up all of these memories of being a teenager. And I realized I desperately wanted to tunnel into that period of my life and just of everyone's life in general. And I wanted to celebrate it. I did not want to judge those teenage feelings. I wanted to explore them, to understand them, and really to really celebrate them. So I decided to marry the teenage moment with this context of the deserted island and pose the question, like, which is harder, being on a remote abandoned island or being a teenager. And I like that there's no clear answer and that it generates conversation and thought.
And my next question is actually for both of you. What was it like being able to work with such a talented group of actors?
Amy, do you want to go for it?
Thrilling. I mean, when you are starting a series, obviously the pilot gives you a pretty good indication of what those actors can do with the scenes that they've been given in the pilot. But as the series grows and expands, and especially with the backstories, you're giving all these characters lots of different stuff to play. It's nerve-wracking because you aren't 100% sure everyone will be able to deliver just because you haven't seen them do it. And to have this, I mean, this beautiful, nuanced, unique cast for me was just a thrill because you could write anything and they could do it, which oftentimes you're trying to write to actors' strengths because that's what you do in a series. And in this show, their strengths were kind of right there, front and center for us all the time to use, and it was very exciting.
Yeah, I some of them were relatively new to the world of being on screen, acting on screen, and I'm brand new to the position of executive producer, and it really made me feel close to them, like we were learning and discovering together, and it gave us this kind of beginner's renegade spirit of like, we don't know what we're doing. Let's just blow it out. And really, I think that just made me feel very close to them. It made me understand where they were coming from in their performances. I loved to watch them grow and expand. It was a thrill.
And my final question for both of you is, what do you guys hope viewers can gain from watching The Wilds?
Yeah, I hope that they take away just how resilient they can be at this age. It's important in this time that's really tumultuous and where the political, geopolitical, climate atmosphere is becoming fraught and scary. Like just to kind of understand that they have it in them to endure.
And for me, I think also that they're seen, that whether or not it's exactly your story or exactly what you look like, that people are going through things that you go through, and that I think being able to see stories authentically told and feel like you see yourself in them is hugely comforting because it tells you you're not alone, especially at a time where so many people are alone because we can't be in our communities.